Okay, so it's called Animal Head's Exaggerated Texture, and by that, you're going to have some type of texture that covers all or most of the project, okay? So for example, with that duck, the duck had an exaggerated texture on the head. Well, take a look here. Here's a rooster, and you can see the real intricate texture that's here, you know, on this, I don't know what you call these, a wattle, that thing hanging from his neck, and the comb up here. And then the feathers are really three-dimensional. They're not flat and smooth. So you're going to be carving texture in there. Here's sort of like a wolf-like creature. Now, I don't expect you to do something this good. These are professional artists, but you can base it on something like this, okay? Now, your sculpture can be freestanding where it just sits on the table, or you could make a base for it, okay? Or it could be hung on the wall. So here's a bull that it's decorative. It's got ornamental things attached to it. So you can do that. You can make a decorative thing. It doesn't have to be just basically based on just one pure animal alone, okay? So I'll show you different examples of types of things I'm doing. Now, by exaggerated texture, what I mean is you have deep grooves on there. This is a stone sculpture that's thousands of years old. Now think about it. Most of the stone is kind of worn down, but you can still tell it what it is because it has really deep, exaggerated, three-dimensional grooves. And that's what you're going to do on yours, okay? So just different examples how they could be based on different animals, okay? Like this, now you're not going to make a whole animal's body, but this rhino's got a really deep texture, and then his horns, in contrast, are smooth. So you might have some areas that are smooth, but some areas are definitely going to be textured. Now here's a rhino. It's made out of wood, but what I like about this rhino is very abstract. So don't think you have to make a realistic animal, okay? I almost like this rhino better than this one because it looks cool. It's really a cool, neat design that's based on a rhino, but it's sort of an abstract version of a rhino, okay? Now here's a rhino and half man. So you can make creatures that incorporate human features and animal features in that one animal, okay? Obviously there's based on different animals. You can do gargoyle-like creatures, which are based on human and animal, okay? This is an Abominable Snowman, I think. Some kind of alien guy, but obviously he's got features of human, and he's got a nose that's kind of like a monkey. This is a sculpture that a girl made. It's of a dragon, and what she made is it stands on the table. And if you look close, she's got shells that are in it. So what she did is she had these little shells at home. She brought them in, and then when the clay was soft, she pushed them into the clay so there was a pocket for the shell and wiggled it around because that pocket's going to shrink just a little bit. And then what she did was, after the thing was fired and glazed, then she glued these seashells in there. So you can add extra elements. Here's that gorilla covered with the metallic glaze. This one was supposed to be like an iguana or some kind of lizard. The tongue was made separate because if you try making something that's long and skinny, it's going to break off, okay? Based on an owl, some kind of horse. Now, this isn't done by a student, but let's say you wanted to make something based on a camel. This is what you need to do. You need to get some visual reference pictures, okay? Now, a camel, we all seen a camel. We recognize a camel. But have you really observed a camel? So in order to do that, you're going to need pictures of that camel from more than one angle. Because we're not doing a drawing of a camel. We're doing a three-dimensional sculpture. So if you take a look at the camel here, you can see the side view. You can see what his nose looks like. You can see what he looks like from an angle. So I would say if you're doing, you're going to base it on a real animal, get at least 3 pictures of that animal from different positions so you really understand what that animal looks like. Another thing you can do, if you have an actual statue of that thing, like one kid, he wanted to do a rhino, and he actually went to Fleet Farm and bought this fake little plastic rhino, but it looked really realistic. And so he used that as his model so he could see what the rhino's horns and head and things like that look like. So for example, we're used to seeing an eagle like this, but what does an eagle look like from the front? So if you need to see what his beak is shaped like from more than one angle to really understand how to do an eagle, okay? Now, most famous sculptor in the whole world probably is Michelangelo. He was a sculptor in Italy back 500 years ago, and he made this statement. He said, "Light is to a sculptor like color is to a painter. Think about that. A painter uses different colors to depict things, but a sculptor uses light. And what do you mean by that? Look at the pupils on this sculpture, okay? They look dark. They're not dark. It's dark because there's a shadow there. So if you want to make something stand out, you dig a hole and it creates a shadow, okay? So he did these sculptures. Look at the eyes. This is Moses, but look at how the deep furrows on his eyebrows and his cheeks, all that is created by shadows. So in other words, what you're going to do is you're going to exaggerate the three-dimensional qualities of your sculptures. Now here's one that he didn't do that with the eyes. I don't know why, but look at, don't the eyes look funny? They look like they're solid white. He needed to carve holes in there to give you that look like there's a dark pupil, okay? Just like this rooster's eye looks like it's a solid marble instead of a hole, okay? But look at the hole that's carved in this eye of this wolf here. It's a hole with a piece sticking out, so it creates a stark circle with a light circle on the inside. So the point I'm trying to make is you really have to exaggerate things. Here's a hand of the statue of David. Now look on the hand. See the veins coming out? Now, I've got veins in my hand, but you can mostly just see them because they're kind of different color. They don't really stick out very much, okay? So if you wanted to make those veins stick out, you have to raise them more than they would be in real life. That'll create a shadow, and they'll look way more three-dimensional, okay? So look at the way he dug the grooves in the hair. Look at the fingernail on the hand on the left, how that thumbnail is dug in so deep so you can really see that fingernail really well, okay? Now, here's a real-life owl, and a real-life owl has feathers, right? But the feathers are smooth. If you touch that owl's wing, you probably wouldn't feel anything but a really smooth surface, okay? So if you take a look at, you know, if you were going to do a sculpture of an owl, you would do something like this. You would groove those feathers in deeply so you can see them. Otherwise, the owl won't look, you won't notice the feathers. It'll just look like some smooth thing, okay? You've seen Mount Rushmore. Anybody ever seen it in person? Anybody here? Really? I did see it, and it was really cool. But anyhow, if you look up close, like for example, look at Abraham Lincoln there. He's got a dark eye, and then in the middle of that dark eye is a little spot. That's supposed to represent the little reflection you have on your eye. So if you zoom in, look at how that looks. It's a big hole, and there's a little block kind of sticking out in that hole. So really, it's the same thing. In order to make Abraham Lincoln's eye look dark, you had to dig a hole there. That creates a shadow, and then there's a piece of rock sticking out that creates light. So here's, I was happened to be there. It was interesting. Look at this. Look at the size of this thing. So before they made Mount Rushmore, they made a model of it. And this is the model. So what they did is they took measurements off the model. So they made this model, and so for example, George Washington's nose, let's say on there it's 1 foot long. Well, 1 foot might equal 20 feet on the sculpture. So they know if this is 1 foot, then that nose up there has got to be 20 feet. Okay? They made this model, and they originally had planned to make the whole bodies of these guys with clothing and all, but it was really hard. So instead, they carved a shirtless George Washington, but then people objected to that. So then they carved off the shirt. Now it's no shirt, just kind of like a lapel like that. And I don't know if you know this, but if you drive around to the back of this, you can see the back side of the sculpture. It looks like that. Did you guys know that at all? They don't usually show that, but in back of the sculpture, you can see that, okay? Anyhow, here's a sculpture that a girl did, and she did hers in metal. I mean, she did hers in the metallic glaze. And then what she did is, it's hard to tell here, but the eye of that thing is like a little glass marble. She literally had a teddy bear with little eyes, and she cut the eyes out of that teddy bear so she could insert them in this. Of course, she didn't care about the teddy bear, okay? Now, I'm not telling you cut eyes out of your teddy bear, but it's an option, okay? And if you look up close, she's got a little copper on there. That was a metallic paint that she put on there to highlight some of the features. I love the texture on here, the little scales that she made, okay? Here's a bulldog with some extra features. This one was done, I love the decorative little spots and dots on this thing. Obviously a hippo. This little snake head. It looks a little boxy, but I kind of like it. She had little marbles on the eyes too, like little tiny beads. Here's a real decorative elephant that a girl made. So what she did is she took a brush and she painted this metallic design on there, which I think is pretty cool. Here's an armadillo. Here's that duck thing that somebody made. Here's an elephant. Now they put a glaze on here that's a matte glaze. Matte's not shiny. So what I like about this, it kind of looks like it's made out of stone because it's got a dull finish to it. Okay? This is kind of based, I don't know what this is, a sloth or something. So anyhow, that's what we're doing.